Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Carolina Valencia, and thank you for attending this virtual event organized by Word Up Community Bookshop. Word Up is a bookshop and art space run by local residents, many of whom are volunteers. We started as a 1 month long pop up shop in 2011, then stuck around due to overwhelming community demand. This past June, we celebrated our 10th birthday, and this June, we're celebrating our 11th birthday with a big gala. We can be found at 2113 Amsterdam Avenue at the corner of 165th Street in Washington Heights, New York City. We host events for all ages and sell used and new books in English and Spanish. So check us out at wordupbooks.com to shop and see other virtual and outdoor events we have. We're open Tuesdays through Fridays 12 to 6 and Saturdays 11 to 5 p.m. And I'm very excited to present today's event in collaboration with Quelly Journal. Today we have two amazing middle grade authors that we're very excited to hear in conversation today. So first, we have Torrey Maldonado, who was born and raised in Brooklyn, growing up in Red Hook Housing Project. He has been a teacher for New York City public schools for nearly 25 years. Congratulations. And his fast-paced, compelling stories are inspired by his and his students' experiences. His popular novels for young readers include What Lane, which garnered many starred reviews and was cited by Oprah and the New York Times for being an essential book to discuss racism and allyship. Tight, which won the Christopher Award, was an ALA notable book and an NPR and Washington Post Best Book of the Year. And his very first novel, Secret Saturdays, which has been in print for over 10 years. And Torrey will be in conversation with phenomenal Olugbemisola Rhuday-Perkovich, who is the author of the 8th grade Super Zero, It Doesn't Take a Genius, and the nonfiction books Above and Beyond, NASA's Journey to Tomorrow, and Someday Is Now, Clara Looper, and the 1958 Oklahoma City sit-ins, and the upcoming May Makes a Way and Saving Earth, the climate crisis and the fight for our future, which we have at Word Up Books. She's the co-author of the middle grade novel Two Naomis, which was nominated for an NAACP Image Awards, and its sequel, Naomi's 2. Inspired by some of her favorite family stories and the city she loves, Operation Sisterhood, which we're here to celebrate, is a celebration of the sweetness and spice of sisterhood. So, welcome, and I'm going to leave you two to discuss.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, T.
Thank you. Hey, what's up? How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm it's funny because you predicted that there would be rain, but I'm glad to see you. You're bringing the sunshine.
You are definitely bringing the sunshine and the fire.
I'm so excited to talk about your book, Operation Sisterhood. Something that people who are tuning in and also who are inside Word Up don't know is that you did a script where you had a bunch of friends and authors and creatives, including myself, read it. So, I have to tell everybody the book is lit, the book is fire, and I really want to just not read and just let Benny read.
Unfortunately, we are going to have the pleasure of hearing you read, T. So what are you planning to read from before we get into our discussion?
Oh, well, we'll leave it up to the audience. I'll ask the audience. Do you want to hear something from What Lane about Halloween, or something from What Lane about basketball and how basketball inspires What Lane? Or would you like to hear Tight?
What Lane, basketball, What Lane?
What Lane, basketball? You got the board ready? I love it. Listen, you ask and I respond. So would you like me to go into the reading now, talk a little bit about it, or how you want to flow?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're going to read? And because I definitely have some questions for you about What Lane and just sort of how our writing is informed by family, community, and stuff. So go for it.
Yes, awesome. So a thing that I needed when I was growing up was I needed a book that reflected me, a book that reflected my neighborhood. So I write books where kids who look like me, people who look like my family and my community, they are in the books. But also when I was growing up in New York City. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. And I mean, you can't come to our neighborhood and not taste the rainbow, Skittles style, and see the whole spectrum, the whole rainbow of humanity. So you get a lot of other different groups inside my book too. I also needed something fun and light when I was growing up because, you know, I was playing video games, I was reading comic books. So if someone's gonna hand me a book, first question was the same question my students asked. Is this fun? Is it gonna be lit? Is it gonna be, you know, so I'm gonna read you something that is a fan favorite. What Lane, this is the book right here. And What Lane follows Stephen. Stephen, he is the sixth grade doppelganger of Stephen Curry. And he is like most kids, you know, he believes that anybody could be in any lane that they want. Has anybody here ever heard stay in your lane? Or someone say, mind your business, right? They both are interchangeable. Well, when people say stay in your lane to anybody, including him, his reaction is, what lane? What lane am I supposed to stay in? And he really asked that question because he's mixed. He's half Black and he's half white. And you can see here that one of his friends, Wes, he's African-American, and his other friend, Dan, is white, but they're not next to each other. They're in different lanes. And that's what Stephen is noticing. He's noticing that as he gets older, that his white friends are being treated differently than he's being treated. And he's noticing that his friends of color are in different lanes and not hanging out with the white friends. So some things happen in this book that swerve them together. And one of the things that swerves them together is Halloween. I love Halloween in my neighborhood because in Brooklyn, where I live, 7th Avenue, everybody descends on 7th Avenue and it's so cool. And you just see people wearing masks and people stepping out of their 24/7 character and just showing their true colors. And that's what this book is about. So I'm going to take you into 7th Avenue and Halloween with the reading that I'm going to read. Should I read now?
Take it away.
Take it away? All right, cool. So if you have What Lane, you could open up to page 72. All right, now I'm really gonna go for it with the voices and everything. So everybody get ready for, you know, Mr. Goofy Avocado to show up. Here we go. That house is all the way Halloweened out, I tell Dan as I point at this brownstone building. It's the day after me and Wes hung out. Yeah, that house wins. We're walking and we're ranking buildings with the dopest Halloween decorations. Dan turns to me. Give me reasons why. Boom. To start, see that scary, scary witch in the window? Yeah. Check out her hands and her face. Her lizardy fingers with long, sharp nails curling back like hawk claws, grabbing its prey. But the light, look at the light shining on her half-rotted green face. Sun! Dan cups his fist to his mouth. Yo, she is scary. Bam, I say. Peep another reason. Her bulging eyes. They're staring at what she's about to grab. Dan squints. Wait, is that a kid in front of her? Yup. And terrified, right? Oh, Stephen, that's wild. He's about to become her dinner. I put on a scary witch voice. Come here, little boy. You tasty looking. This whole house is OD scary, Dan says. And we keep on walking and keep on talking and pointing at different houses. Dan, oh, the cobwebs on that house. Me, cut off heads hanging from windows. Are those troll heads? Dan, human-sized zombies are guarding that gate over there. Me, oh, check the sign. The sign says, this way to the afterlife. Dan sighs, yup, that house is the scariest. I wish every day was Halloween. I like that the whole world acts like us on Halloween. They get into fantasy stuff and they act like your bracelet. I look down at my bracelet. It says What Lane. What do you mean? The whole year, everyone acts one way. they're in one lane. But for Halloween, everyone is in different lanes, being whoever or whatever they want to be. Facts. And we fist bump. I'll stop right there.
Claps, claps, claps. I love it. Well, you know,
Thank you.
so let's talk a little. Why don't we talk a little, and then I'll go into reading, because I loved some of the questions. I loved all the questions that you had, and the topics that you had. So why don't we dig in? That was fantastic.
Yes. So I'd like to ask you a question first. Is that all right?
Go for it.
All right. Now, I know that you write for different age groups. I want to know, what do you feel is a through line or some repeating themes in all of your books, no matter what age your books is geared for?
I think that I do explore some of the same themes that you do, and like talking about what lane and kids sort of figuring out identity, figuring out where they want to belong, where other people may think they belong, the boxes that other people may put them in, and coming of age and exploring that. I know for me as a kid growing up, I would always feel like other people were trying to define me and say like, oh, you are the whatever one, or you are the bookish one. I was definitely the nerdy one. And I would read, and through books, really sort of see into all these other worlds and see like where I wanted to be and see all these different me's that I wanted to be. And I also knew that I was a different self in different communities and in different settings. And none of those were fake. They were all just sort of a part of me. And I think that's something that a lot of kids go through. And I think that's something that my characters experience. And I hope that readers can kind of relate to that through the stories and work those things out themselves. What about you?
I agree with you. I found it very limiting growing up, and I find it extremely limiting when I see students. I teach 8th grade, by the way, but for almost 25 years, I was teaching 6th grade. And I have to say the through line with the 6th graders and 8th graders, just middle school in general, is a through line with all people, you know, larger or smaller. And the through line is people try to box us in.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about your writing is that you're doing what I try to do too, where we're showing and we're taking limits off of characters. We're taking limits off of communities, limits off of families. So I wanted to circle back to that. And I wanted to ask you, because you don't want kids defined, but one of the things that is very clear in your writing is that you also don't want New York City defined.
No.
So I would love for you to talk about why do you portray New York City the way that you do?
Oh, so there's so much to that. I mean, I love New York City. I love this city. It's not an easy city, but it is a beautiful city, and you know that, and you know you love New York the way I love New York, and just in general, always when I'm writing about New York, I am sort of thinking about some of those outside definitions about New York, and like people that I talk to who live in other states who are like, "Ooh, I'm scared to come to New York," or they see depictions on television or film that are pretty negative or just exaggerated. And I want to share a lot of the warmth that's in New York and the community that's in New York. And with Operation Sisterhood in particular, I was doing a lot of the writing during some of the really hard parts of this pandemic. And I was intending to write a joyful book, but it was really, really hard because it was sad. And like, I looked out the window and I mean, it was really, really sad. But that sort of made me more want to write something joyful and give kids especially something joyful, and to sort of remind myself or remind us of the joy and warmth that there is in the city that we just don't let go of here. And you do that a lot too. So even though when you're writing about hard things, you are always infusing it with that warmth and that humor and just that life.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's so funny that you said the light, because as you were talking, I was hearing the song, you know, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Well, but one of the things they say is that, you know, the light that shines in the darkness shines the brightest.
Oh, the Christophers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to shine light in darkness. So I want to go circle back to something that you just said. You said you were trying to write a joyful story, Operation Sisterhood, during some of the heavier parts of the pandemic. What did you do to, when you found that your writing was getting heavy and that your story was getting heavy, what did you do to flip it from feeling heavy, not so right, to feeling joyous and light?
That's a good question. I mean, I did have to accept that whatever's going on informs my writing. So I did have to accept that sort of what was happening in the world and how I was feeling about it was going to show up in some way. And I did really struggle because a lot of my writing process involves being out and about in the city and getting on the train and going to all these different favorite places that I love to go and writing on the subway and writing outside in the park. So there was just a long time when I couldn't do any of that. So I really returned to a lot of my favorite childhood stories and my favorite books and thought about how they made me feel. So not necessarily the content, but just how they made me feel. So I kept thinking about how I wanted the reader to feel reading the story and thinking about how I wanted this work to serve the reader. And I know that, you know, everyone develops their own relationship with a book and with a story. And so I can't predict, but I can sort of have an intention and decide that what I want to give is something joyful and something loving and something that says to kids that I see them and respect them. Wait, you're muted.
Sorry about that. That was awesome. I hope people wrote that down, because that was actually a valuable writing tip too that you gave, to write or storytell in a way where you have people feel, but also feel something memorable, something that you really want them to take away.
We've talked a little bit about how sort of the city informs our work, and I'd love for you to share, you know, how does Brooklyn, how does your community, how did it inform you sort of growing up as a storyteller? And
damn, you said how did Brooklyn, and all of a sudden I hear Biggie in my head. Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? And then also I hear Miles Morales diving off of that skyscraper. Everybody remembers when he jumps up and he yells, "Brooklyn!" You know, speaking of Biggie and speaking of Miles Morales, those are two different genres, two different forms of media that informs my writing. A lot of people know, well, you know me, me, and some of the people tuning in know that whenever I hear something or see something, my mind connects it to music. And so there's a musicality to writing, and in my books, you know, especially in What Lane, I definitely made references to different types of music that young people listen to, different rappers. You know, there's this moment where Dan and Wes, you know, Dan White, West African American, they clash because they're talking about Drake, and if Drake is one of the best rappers out. So, you know, that type of banter, like who's better, Drake, Wayne, who's better, you know, Lil Baby, or, you know, that banter, you find that in my books. So that's there. Yeah.
Do your students read?
Yeah.
It reads very real to me, and it's very alive. Do your students read your works in progress?
They don't read my works in progress. And this is a thing that I get from my mom. My mom, you know, Stevie Wonder, superstition is the way. My mom is superstitious. Just last night, I was telling her about my forthcoming middle grade book that's about to come out. And the first thing she said, over the phone is, you didn't tell anybody about this book, right? I was like, okay, now I know where I get it from. Because the next words that followed from my mom was, you don't want to jinx it. You don't want to. So I have some superstition around sharing my stuff before it's out. So yeah, I just write my stuff and then I give it to my editor and she tells me if it's hot trash or if it's good.
My daughter's a good reader for me, and she will tell me if it's hot trash or if it's okay.
That's awesome that you have your daughter. How much does she charge so she could be one of my first readers?
I'm gonna let her negotiate for herself.
What's up? Self-advocacy. Let's go. I have another question for you, Bemi. I've heard you say this in different interviews. You've talked about the city as your classroom. And I want to know, how is the city a classroom in Operation Sisterhood? And what is New York City teaching readers?
That's a very good question. So they are, well, they call it free schooled in the book. They are homeschooled girls. And I always had a fascination with homeschooling. And as a parent, I kind of would sort of keep one foot in the homeschool world, just because I met a lot of Black homeschooling groups who were just doing these incredible fun things all around the city. And just having the freedom to sort of do all these activities, do all these projects and do them all together. And it was sort of an intergenerational, multi-age thing. So that was a lot of fun. And I do feel like New York City is a great place to homeschool. But we happen to have some fantastic public schools as well. So my daughter went to a great school that you know very well.
Yep.
And had that same kind of project-based expeditionary learning. Because New York City, one thing that I think a lot of people not in the city don't know a lot about is just how many different landscapes we have, different types of communities. And so you can sort of go from very, very sort of concrete urban to very, very green and almost rural feeling in minutes if you're taking the train on the subway. So I really wanted to incorporate that in the book and sort of have the girls go on these trips. They're kind of self-directed in their learning, maybe a little too self-directed. I'm working on Operation Sisterhood 2 right now, and they're kind of making some mistakes, and they could use a little guidance from the adults. But just to enjoy the city the way I do, and the way my mom, when I was a kid, she would take us on neighborhood adventures. So we wouldn't really be going very far, but we would be going to neighborhoods and communities that weren't familiar to us. And we'd go and find a good place to eat and just walk around and see the people. And when I was working with students after school, I would say like, oh, let's go to this library or this museum that was just like a few subway stops away. And they would be like, Miss, I don't leave the neighborhood, or I don't go that far. And I really would love, especially Black and brown kids, to sort of feel that they can cross these boundaries and that they can belong in all these different places. And the city has so much of that at once.
Yeah, I recently I was interviewed and someone had asked me a question, and they asked, if I was going to give a tour guide of New York City, where would I take people? And instead of answering the question and telling them where I would take people, I just named you and a few other authors who take people on tours through your books. So I thank you for doing that, because your books do let people travel through different parts of New York without them having to leave wherever they're at.
But there are some really great real places. I would love to know some of your favorites in the city.
Can I read you a scene from Tight?
Yes.
And this is one of my favorite places. This is a place that my mom used to take me to when I was younger. So it's two places actually that my mom used to take me to.
Okay.
So on Friday, Mom finishes stuff at her desk at work. And she's doing different things and then interrupts me. Are you ready? Ready for what? I'm taking you someplace special. We go outside and Ma leads me in the opposite direction that we usually go, away from our housing projects And then she holds my hand. Now, only a few boys out here hold their mom's hands. Most act too cool to even walk close to their moms. I don't sweat my holding my hand because Ma's my heart and we're tight and I don't hide it. So I asked Ma, where's this surprise you taking me to? And she said, shh, it's a surprise. And I have this feeling, I think she's taking me to the Cuchi Frito spot that makes this slamming fried Spanish food. The cooks there, they bag the food in brown paper bags and the grease stains expand from a little pencil point dot to stains the size of my fist. And that food, it makes my hands, my lips, my cheeks mad oily. And we keep going. And right as we get to the bus stop that rides outside of our projects to downtown Brooklyn, Ma tugs on my elbow. Hurry up. I said, we're getting on a bus? Wait, what? I thought we were going. So they get on the bus. And then the next place that they end up is a place that shows up in a few different of my books, the Brooklyn Heights.
I love that. I'd like to talk a little bit about family and how it informs both our writing and just family in our stories. And I have a little passage from Operation Sisterhood, a very short passage with a little bit of a difficult dynamic that the sisters are going through. And so they are rehearsing, they all play instruments. They're 4 sisters, Bo, Sunday, Lil, and Lee. I don't know if you just heard my cat, he was protesting. So the 4 sisters are trying to be a band and trying to work together. And Bo has sort of come to this family and it's just alien to her. And it feels a little too chaotic to her. And she's used to just kind of being with her mom in their nice little apartment in the Bronx. And all of a sudden they're in this brownstone. There are a lot of animals, there's a lot of music, a lot of activity. And she's trying to navigate that and trying to figure out what her place is in this family. Rehearsal was not going well. Even though they had settled on the animal shelter for their band debut, at least the animals won't care that we don't have a name yet, Sunday had pointed out. Bo noticed that they couldn't agree on much else. Was that the doorbell? Bo really just wanted to escape to the kitchen and bake something. She would never admit it, but sometimes the bright red paint on the rehearsal room walls made her head pound louder than her drums. In fact, the shouty walls, the 4 ginormous trunks always open and overflowing with Lil's band uniform ideas, Sunday's notebooks all over the place, the dress forms, the half-built robots, and the jumble of broken instruments didn't exactly scream harmony. Neither did the band at the moment. They'd spent the first 15 minutes shooting down each other's band name ideas, and then every attempt to get Loud, Free Me, Sunday's latest composition, Exactly Right, was coming out all wrong. This song is kind of silly, said Lil, as they launched into it for the 10th time. What's silly is the way you keep trying to add like rock riffs or licks or whatever you're doing to a house song, said Sunday. It doesn't make sense. It just makes noise. You know, we're supposed to be soothing the residents, said Lee. Why don't we practice shelter dog blues? This could be a regular gig for us if we do a good job. You could come to the shelter with me every day. Oh joy, said Sunday. Back me up, please, Bo. It doesn't sound good, right? Can we get on the same page for once, please? We are never going to be known for more than making noise anyways with your songs like Loud, Free Me, snapped Lil. And with you always writing the songs, we're always on your page all the time. Maybe we should take 5, Bo said, trying to push the attitude back down her throat. I'll make us a snack. And I'm pretty sure I heard the doorbell. Maybe Miss Tyler, I didn't hear anything, said Sunday. But I did hear Lee saying, if you will, instead of if you would. And that brings a completely different meaning to the story that I'm trying to tell. We're running out of time, and I'm afraid we have to run this again. She hits middle C on her keyboard for emphasis, accidentally also hitting the bossa nova button. A bouncy beat tries to lift the spirit of the room. It didn't work. If you didn't keep taking 5 to do a 4/4 beat, muttered Lee, we'd be done with rehearsal by now. Again, 1, 2, wait, said Sunday. I want to start this chord progression. Bo, breaking the sisters' unofficial hands on your own instrument unless I said you could touch it rule, walked over to Sunday's keyboards and pushed the off button. Ooh, said Lil, glancing at Lee and raising her eyebrows. It's on now. She strummed a few warning chords. I'm gonna stop there.
Yeah, round of applause, round of applause.
So family, so that was not a great family moment for the girls. And you know, we all have sort of different roles in the family. And I'm curious for you, especially as like a young storyteller, what was your role? How did you see your role?
You know, my mom was a Jackson fan, you know, the Jackson 5. She was a Jackson 5 fan. So I joke because every hairstyle that the Jacksons went through, my sisters and I, we went through the hairstyles, right? So I had that big lollipop afro when Michael had it. And then when he decided to go with the Kim Kardashian look, my mom permed my hair and I had that look too, you know. So
why
but
have I not seen pictures of this story?
because they're incriminating. And those are like extortion pictures. I'm not releasing those ever. Yeah, you know, so what happened was that we also became like a source of entertainment for my mom. You know, like my mom would say to my sisters or to myself, get up and show me this, you know, and this show me this Michael move, or you know, read me a poem or something. So the role of storyteller, it got nurtured by my mom, because something I didn't know until I got older was that her mother loved writing, but her mom grew up in a time where women weren't encouraged and girls weren't encouraged to pursue writing as a career. And my grandma on my mom's side passed on many great things to my mom. One thing that she passed on to my mom too was those insecurities around writing. And so my mom would write and storytell, but my mom also felt like she couldn't tell her stories or publish her stories. So what she made sure she did was instill in me a confidence that, you know, my voice mattered and that I should take the football that my grandma passed to my mom and I should carry it into the end zone. So I credit my mom for nurturing me as a storyteller. So my role as a storyteller in my family is one of just carrying the flame for my mom and for my community. And another role is I really try to show my family and my community in a realistic way, because I just want to let everybody know, y'all in Washington Heights, I come from Red Hook projects. And if you know anything about Red Hook, this story sounds familiar. I had a student who found out I wrote a book, and he found out that I was doing a reading in Red Hook. He was so excited. He said, "Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to come to the reading and I'm going to bring some of my friends." And I said, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great." You know, 2 days later, he comes back to school and he says, "I can't go." So why can't you go? And he says, "My mom says if I go to Red Hook, I might get shot." And I was like, okay. So here are these stereotypes being pumped by the media. So my role as a storyteller in my family and my community is to show the truth. You know, we're not a Grand Theft Auto game. You know, we're not The Wire. You know, there's a lot of joy, just like the joy that you find in Operation Sisterhood and in your books.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like for me in childhood, my parents were both immigrants to this country. So my mom was from Jamaica and my dad is from Nigeria. And there are a lot of stereotypes about both Nigerians and Jamaicans and like being strict. In my family, they were pretty true. And so my sister and I were not allowed to watch very much television except for like a little PBS. And we did have a lot of books and reading material in the home, and we just had a lot of stories. So we were always asking for all those back home stories, like tell us about when you came to this country, tell us about when you were a little girl, tell us about Mile Gully, which is where my mom was from in Jamaica, tell us about Ijebu-Ode, like all these different stories. And so storytelling was a big part of our lives. And there were times when we lived with my grandparents from Jamaica, and they also were big readers. They didn't have very much formal education. My grandfather only went to 3rd grade, and my grandmother much later on went on to finish high school and she went to nursing school, but they were always reading. And like my grandfather would have like big stacks of National Geographics that he was always reading. And I was very free to read whatever was in the house, whatever I could take out from the library. So I would come home with like those big stacks of books. And it was just, I had a lot of freedom in what I read. And I was introduced to books that I think weren't as familiar to people in this country. So there were like the African Writers series and Caribbean stories. And so I grew up feeling, between my family and what we had, feeling like, wow, Black people across the diaspora, we have a lot of stories. Like we have a lot of stories to tell. And so I was very fortunate to sort of have that at the foundation, because as I grew and was going through school, you might not know that. And I would just kind of see either no stories about us or the single stories and the stories that you talked about. And so it has definitely been very important to me as a writer and just as someone sharing books to show that just like everyone else, we're made up of so many stories. We can have stories about joy, we can have stories about pain. Those two things can be in one story. We can write fantasy, horror, humor. We have all of these stories to share, and we should be able and empowered to share them.
You said joy and pain, and I've got another New York City rap going through my head. That
I can
joy,
hear it.
pump it up, pump it up. You know, it's funny because you're talking about, you know, stories and how stories got nurtured in us. I wonder what type of young writer you were. I know sometimes I used to tell stories and my sisters would say, you know, stop telling stories, go write that down. And they didn't realize that at the time they were actually encouraging me to become a writer. I was like, okay, I would go and write this story down. So I would write things down that my sisters didn't want to hear. What about you? What type of writer were you when you were younger?
So I started out listening to my friends talk about the shows that they got to watch. And then I would go home and write up what they said and make like little books and make them for my little sister. And like I'd write and illustrate these little books. And then very early on, we would put on shows. My sister and I and another pair of sisters would put on these shows for our poor moms. And I would write these plays and like write all the scenes. And I would have to be like the writer, the director, and the star. We'd have to have long pauses between scenes so that I could change my costume so I could like be in every scene. And so I wrote a lot. And then I figured out that there was a way at school for me to use my writing to my advantage, like with assignments. So sometimes we would get assignments and I would think like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I would go to the teacher and say like, okay, how about if I don't know, write this play, or I would come up with another way of writing that I wanted to do. And if it was good, if my idea was good, and if I put in the work, my teachers would say, okay, like, let's see what you can do. And so I had a lot of encouragement from my family and from my teachers. And I had a lot of, because I was a very shy kid, writing sort of helped me work, and still does, help me work things out, work out my questions about the world. Maybe not come to answers, but even figure out the questions that I was trying to ask and just reflect on everything around me. And so I used to journal a lot, and I would use writing in so many ways to just help me move through the world.
Yeah, I'd get in trouble if I didn't relay a hello from one of your favorite readers, my daughter. My daughter's 13.
Oh,
And she reads your books. I remember when two Naomis came out, she was just like, is she writing anything else? I was like, I think she is writing some more stuff.
She is so adorable. You know, in my head, she's still just like 9 years old. Like that's.
Yeah, in my head, she's that age too. But this is the age where, boyfriends are starting to show up. And I'm like, don't you see I don't have any hair on my head already? You trying to make me lose more hair? I have a question. Speaking of daughters, because I know you have a daughter, right? One of the things that I love about your writing is that there are universal themes, and there's some timeless dynamics. That really comes out in Operation Sisterhood, when you see how the family gathers together and the family has fun, the way you was just saying how you and your family would have fun trying to create stories. I wanted to know, did you find, or does your daughter find, any of the things inside your writing, any overlap, like the dynamics that she's gone through, that you went through, and it's like a connecting piece between mom and daughter?
I mean, I won't speak for her. I know for me, in the relationship in Operation Sisterhood between Bo and her mom, I found a lot, and this wasn't really something I was intending. It just sort of was coming out as I was writing, where her mom really wanted all these things that she thought were so good, and they were good things. Like, she wanted all these good things for her daughter, and it took her a while to understand that Bo maybe didn't want all of those same things, or maybe it was more about what she wanted, and it was, loving and well-meaning, but Bo really had to figure out how to assert herself and say, Ma, I love you, and I know that you want what's good for me, but I need to sort of figure some of these things out for myself, or I need to sort of say no to some of these things and set some boundaries and figure out where to set a boundary and where to be flexible. And I think that was hard for her mom. And so I think in that way, Bo's mom, Lola, is a lot like me. And I was kind of working some of that out through writing that. What about you?
Oh yeah.
You have some interesting dads in your story. So
I don't share my writing with my daughter before it's published, but once it's an ARC, an advanced reader's copy, I hit her off with it and I say, here, tell me what you think. And she'll come back to me and she'll say, oh my God, they do that in my school, or we do that. Or were you overhearing me, Dad? Did you hear what we were talking about and put that in the book? And it wasn't the case. I wasn't eavesdropping and lifting anything out of her life and putting in there. It's just that they're like we write about universal topics. We write about timeless things. So, the banter that happens inside Tight, where, one boy's like, who would win? Superman versus the Hulk.
Yeah.
And then they keep going, what about Wolverine versus Colossus? What about Daredevil versus Batman? But no weapons, just hand-to-hand combat. Like that type of stuff, shows up in my book, and those universal ways of writing shows up in your book. And young people, including our children, are like, wait a minute. Recognition.
It's funny because when I do put real people, a lot of times I put my friends in my books and like their characters, and they never recognize themselves, and they think they recognize other people. And I'm thinking like, that's actually you, but okay.
That happened in my first book with Secret Saturdays. Manny, he's the bully in the book.
Yeah.
And I pulled him out of real life. He was the guy who bullied and tormented me in middle school. And I'll never forget. Now I'm grown, right? The book is published. We have this huge cookout called Old Timers Day, and I'm in Red Hook, and it's packed, 1,000 people there. And his brother, the real Manny's brother, comes up to me and says, yo, I heard you write books. I said, yeah. He said, my brother read one of them. I said, well, that's my only one. And he said, yeah, well, he thought it was good. Matter of fact, he's right over there. He's coming over here. And I was like, oh my God, do not let him come over here, because he probably realizes that he's Manny. And then he comes over and he's like, yo, this book is fire. But let me ask you a question. Who's that stupid dude, man? That idiot, Manny? And I was like, you don't realize you're Manny. So yeah, it's cool that you write in a way, you know, we write in ways that we don't get recognized, but you write positively about your friends and they don't get recognized.
Yeah, there is one person that I do actually put their whole name in. Like, she was like my nemesis during a time in middle school, and I've put her in multiple books, her name. So, but I have no idea if she ever reads it or not.
Oh, I wonder if she like read that and was like, gulp, welp.
So we've talked about some songs and like music as we've been talking, and I know we have some live music
Yes.
that's going to be shared.
Okay, so we're very lucky that we have some live performers at Word Up. So if you haven't been to Word Up, this is part of what the store looks like. And yeah, let me introduce you. We have a special performance from musical theater artist Katie Madison and musician Lola Johnson, who will be performing a new song that Madison wrote called Marigold Memories Made by the Sun. So let me move out of the shot so you can see.
Hi, can you hear us? I'm Katie, and this is Lola.
Hello.
This is a song from a show that I have written music and lyrics for, that Deborah Cowell is writing the book for. And it's called Sun Songs, and the musical, interestingly enough, you know, similarly to these incredible writers that we're here on Zoom with, was written during the pandemic. And it kind of explores the fact that at our core, we're all stardust. And it's rooted in a South African folk tale that talks about a young girl. It's from the San people of South Africa. And this young girl is, they say that she was sitting around the fire with her people, and I used, you know, she, her, but I wonder if like back then, if her gender was less binary. But she is credited for creating the entire Milky Way from the flames of the fire. And so Sun Songs is kind of an exploration of how do we find our joy and how do we find our love, and how are we reminded that we do have the capacity to create something as magical as that. And so you can find that Lola will be there too. We're gonna do a free concert this summer with Lincoln Center as part of their programming, the end of July. And then you can see a workshop version of the entire show in Poughkeepsie this summer, New York Stage and Film. Via my Instagram or Quelly's or my webpage, kbmadison.com. You can find all that information, or like Lincoln Centers or New York Station Film. So the song is called Marigold Memories. Marigolds are a really cool representation for the power of the sun, and it's the second song in the show. I also, before we start, I want to recognize that like being in this space with all of these stories and with all of these words, and then to be in the company with these incredible authors is pretty magical, and it does feel like it is a really big privilege to be in this space. So thank you to Word Up, thank you to Quelly, you know, it's thank you, Lola, for showing up. Thank you for every single person who, you know, did the work to send an email. It takes a lot of people to be able to do something like this, and it's very special. Okay, so now the music. Hi.
Feeling good. Do you want me to start it out, or do you want to ease away it? Do you want to
Can I start it?
Yeah, let's.
Okay.
All right. We're so polite.
Okay.
It's a beautiful thing.
Mama, mama, she raised me, but I was made by the sun. Daddy, daddy couldn't stay, he's always chasing the horizon till the day is done. Mama, mama, she raised me, but I was made by the sun. Daddy, daddy couldn't stay, he's always chasing the horizon till the day is done. Find that gateway to the heavens, a gateway to the soul. Trust the sacred keys of seven, they know how we become whole. Days feel longer when the air is cold. Strong winds howling with brash blushed marigolds. Tucked in copper fields yielding to the sky. Shields us out from blossoms of Toronto so divine. Mama, she raised me, but I was made by the sun. Daddy, daddy couldn't stay, he's always chasing the horizon till the day is done. Find a gateway to the heavens, a gateway to the soul. Trust the sacred keys of seven, they know how we become whole. Oh, oh, precious building keeps us digging in deep. Sleeping through the seasons while our memories steep. Blankets of petals dancing gently to and fro. A rhythm so instinct speeding up only to go slow. Oh, 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 keeping my reflection in the pocket of my hand. Knowing if I lose direction, I can find it in the land. I feel the sandstorm blowing around me, but my ancestors, they found me when I'm sounding the alarm. There's something starting to disarm what I hold true. I told you, the golden hue. Mama raised me, but I was made by the sun. Daddy couldn't stay, so it's chasing the horizon. Mama made me, but I was raised by the sun. Daddy couldn't stay, so it's chasing the horizon. Mama, mama, she raised me, but I was made by the sun. Daddy, daddy couldn't stay, he's always chasing the horizon till the day is done. Find a gateway to the heavens, a gateway to the soul. Trust the sacred keys of seven, they know how we become whole. Thank you all.
I don't know if you want to talk to them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. The conversation was amazing. We were all like clapping and like oohing and awing. I was sad you couldn't hear us. But yeah, hopefully for your next books, we'll be in person, outdoors, enjoying the lovely weather. We're sad we couldn't do this all together, but
Well,
we're excited
thank
for the next
you.
time.
Yeah, but thank you. I thank you. Thank you, Quelly. Thank you, Lola and Katie. Thank you so much, T. Like, this was really so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Digital ways. Well done. I mean, and thank you for writing these important stories, both of you. And thank you for all the people who acknowledge that words matter and stories matter. And, you know, I'm taking a note from both of you too that, you know, my story matters and it's important. You guys
Yes,
made that
yes.
space, and that is so cool.
Your music was wonderful. Now I want to have music at every book talk.
Laura and Quelly, like, she knows the impact of stories and music, and yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. If you got any videos or pictures, we'd love to see it. Just tag all of us. You can tag Word Up Books. And yeah, we'll hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.